you can come out and do as little or as much as you want and just have a great weekend cycling some of the best roads in the Peak District. Talking like Winnett's Pass, Snake Pass, Holmmoth, Roseley Bar, you know, they're big names. It is such a nutritional course that, yeah, it is a real challenge to get round.
Kind of having enough confidence but not having too much ego to feel like you're adaptable and you can be still humbled by the terrain and the environment that you're riding in.
We really have got something special here. You know, these hills are, you got to come see them to believe them. I completed 32 iron distance triathlons in 32 days this year. So no wonder I'm tired.